short notice. Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing as I would like to have a minute's silence following the death of David Bowen, head teacher at St Nicholas School. As Councillors Andrew and Shona Johnson are connected to the school, I'd like to offer our condolences to you both and to Mr Bowen's family plus the school. Be seated. So now first of all, before I go to the agenda, I'd like to thank Clive for taking over from my role last month. That was fabulous, and I do thank him for everything he did for me. Okay. Item 1, apologies for absence and substitutes. Councillor Harlow. Okay. Item 2, declarations of interest. None. Okay. Item 3, minutes of pages 3 to 6. Okay. Okay. Right. The Development Management Committee has gone on as well, which is not on my agenda. Council tax resolution. Right, okay. Pages 2 to 6. Do we have a proposer? And a seconder?
Second, Chair.
Now, can we come straight to the vote? Does everybody agree, or does somebody want to say something?
Agreed.
Agreed? Okay. And it will be a named vote.
So I'll read the names in order. You can either vote for, against or abstain. Councillor Carter.
Did you say Clark? Carter.
Carter.
Abstain.
Councillor Clark.
4.
Councillor Danvers.
4.
Councillor Davies.
4.
Councillor Dunn.
4.
Councillor Durkin.
4.
Councillor Edwards.
4.
Councillor Harvey.
4.
Councillor Huckle.
4.
Councillor Ingle.
4.
Councillor Jezard.
4.
Councillor Johnson.
Abstain.
Councillor Mason.
4.
Councillor Purton.
4.
Councillor Shears.
4.
Councillor Souter.
Abstain.
Councillor Stratton.
4.
Councillor Stevens.
4.
Councillor Toll.
4.
Councillor Vince.
4.
Councillor Waite.
4.
Councillor Wilkinson.
4.
It's 19 for 3 abstentions, Chairman.
Thank you. So that is carried. Okay. We now come on to matters of urgent business. There are none. We've done it. This is 5 minutes? Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, councillors, members of the public, welcome to the Cabinet of the 28th of February. Apologies for absence. No? Okay. Declarations of interest. Minutes, pages 3 to 11. They look like a fair record to me. That's okay. Lovely. No matters arising. There are 2 written questions from the public, both from Mr. Gary Roberts. Mr. Roberts.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Mr. Roberts, would you like to take your questions read, or do you want to say it?
No, I'd like to read them, sir.
Okay.
First one is, why is the council so reluctant to call a tenants meeting to discuss the increase over many years the number of repairs made the responsibility of the council tenant?
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Tenants and leaseholders have the opportunity to attend regular housing forums to discuss housing matters. There have been no changes to the council repairs policy since 2007, and has not been an increase in the number of repairs made the responsibility of the council tenant. The repairs policy is also reviewed regularly by elected tenant representatives who are satisfied that the policy does not need changing. In addition, the council has a vulnerable persons policy to assist those who need additional help with repairs. Over the years, the council has advised tenants what it expects them to undertake, or indeed bring back the property to the original state where tenants have made changes to the property without permission and consideration given to health and safety regulations. When and if there are any changes to the repairs policy, widespread consultation will be undertaken with all tenants and leaseholders.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson, for your reply. If I had a pound note for every time I'd heard the first line of your reply, I'd be a millionaire times over. What I can't understand is, I'm being told by tenants that when they phone up the repair service...
Is there a question coming?
There will be, yes. When I'm being told by tenants that when they phone up, they are being told for the first time that the repair is the responsibility of the tenant rather than the council, they are very disappointed, and some are not very fit to do the repair, so the repair is not getting done. What I would ask you to do, please, is to reconsider your decision not to have a tenants meeting to discuss the repairs service, and involve all tenants at all levels so that they get a fair chance to involve the change of policy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you again, Mr. Roberts. Can you turn the mic on, please? Thank you. Firstly, as someone as Cabinet Member for Housing for this authority, I can assure you that I receive literally hundreds of inquiries from tenants on a monthly basis. I am not aware of any tenants emailing me or contacting me in any shape or form to say that they have asked for repairs to be done and the council has refused. If there are any issues, please bring them to my attention, and I can guarantee you I will contact the issue. Your actual question about involvement with tenants, I think the answer is already within my first question. We have regular meetings with tenants and leaseholders. The tenants and leaseholder forums are open to every single tenant in this town. The tenants that represent on the panels and the Housing Standards Board are elected by tenants alone. They are not elected by officers or councillors. There are plenty of opportunities for tenants to feed in, and I would welcome any tenant or leaseholder feeding into this system. Thank you.
Mr. Roberts, you have a question for me.
I do, yes. Has the council considered putting residents, leaseholders and tenants on the HTS board? If not, why not?
Yes, it has considered that. However, following the transition from Kia Harlow Limited to HTS Property and Environment Limited in 2017, the council ensures that it continued to operate its management in the same commercial way. As such, it would be inappropriate to consider the representation suggested. However, the representation and involvement of tenants, leaseholders and residents is important, which is why the long-established standards boards and panels and the Environmental Service Improvement Team will continue to consider the performance and delivery of services provided by HTS Property and Environment Limited. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please. I respect your reply, Mr. Chairman, but basically the same argument applies to the one that I received from Councillor Wilkinson earlier. I want tenants, leaseholders and residents to be involved. It's supposed to be a democracy. The council is supposed to open up to talk to tenants, residents and leaseholders, and they are not doing so. I would ask you again to reconsider your decision not to include, as HTS is now council owned, I believe. I would ask you to reconsider your decision not to include these people, because I think they would have a very, very strong purpose in adding experience to the HTS board.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. All I can say is that the views of tenants, leaseholders and residents does matter to us. That's why we have the standards boards and panels. I understand there can be some very lively meetings there, and tenants, residents and leaseholders' views are very well represented in that way, which is the way that we think is most appropriate. Thank you. Right, there are no written questions from councillors. Petitions. We were due to have a petition today from the Harlow Palestinian Society about the council's adoption of the IHRA definition on anti-Semitism. We've delayed that. The petition is unable to attend due to ill health, and made a request that we made a reasonable adjustment and allowed the petition to be presented in our next cabinet. We've made that reasonable adjustment. It will be heard in the next cabinet, and if the petitioner is unable to attend himself, then we'll ask for a substitute to bring it forward. Forward plan, pages 12 to 19. Are we content to note the forward plan? Oh, Councillor Carter.
Thank you. Just a quick question. It's on page 15. I don't know, is that 1009 or I009744? HTS Property Environment Limited Contract Awards 1920. I'm just wondering what contracts they were.
On the page.
Page 15.
Yeah, I think, Councillor Carter, they relate to contracts that go out that HTS bid for, as in private estate, council estate, flat blocks, etc. Any of those contracts that HTS bid for would be brought to this matter.
So it's not the capital works? It's not the capital works?
I think it'd be a mixture of both at the moment.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. There are 10 key items listed for the meeting on the 28th of March. A number of them, like the Town Centre Action Plan, the Public Protection Order, the Homelessness Strategy, the Community Engagement Strategy, are all bulky items that a number of members, I'm sure, will want to get into the detail of. Is that too many items for one meeting? Does this beg the question, should there be an additional meeting of Cabinet before we end this administrative year?
Very valid point, actually. When I went through it myself, I also thought that. Having said that, I'm not sure that, particularly in one instance, that item will go. Are you happy for me to discuss that with the leader and see whether it is better to have another meeting or what the situation is here at the time?
If you could keep the opposition members informed, that would be most welcome.
Right. Are we happy to note the forward plan?
Noted.
Thank you. And for a change, there have been two decisions taken, one by myself and one by the Deputy Leader. Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, the first one's just a quite straightforward legal obligation as part of the housing regulatory requirements. We have to send an annual report to tenants and leaseholders every year, and just by agreement to do so.
And mine was a request from the Essex Police Crime and Fire Commissioner to give permission for them to adjust their constitution to make some decisions. Are we happy to note those? Noted? Good. Right, moving on to the substantial Harlow and Gilston Garden Town strategy, transport strategy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The two recommendations relate to the Garden Town Transport.
Councillor Page, do you want to move it first?
Move it.
Oh, move it, yes.
I'll second. Thank you.
Okay. The two recommendations obviously relate to the Garden Town Transport strategy. One is to approve the strategy as set out in the report for a 6-week period of public consultation. Necessarily, because of the further restrictions, has to be after the May elections. And then following the consultation and obviously any subsequent revisions to the document, it's recommended that the transport strategy be agreed as a material planning consideration during the preparation of the master plans and various other parts of the process of beginning to actually build the Garden Town. Now, the reason why it's come here, or the reason why we're considering it this evening, is that although this strategy is still a high-level document, has been approved by the Garden Town Board, it's necessary because of the way we've proceeded right from the beginning with cooperation between the local authorities. It's necessary for all the constituent local authorities to individually agree that this can go forward as for consultation. I'm obviously quite willing to answer any questions, but the strategy, is generally well understood as a sustainable transport strategy for not only for the new developments, but we have to always take into account that this is going to affect existing residents, our communities that we represent at present. Because unless we have a sustainable transportation strategy, more development, more jobs, more people, more journeys will become a nightmare for Harlow. And so this strategy is not just desirable, it's absolutely essential if the town is going to continue to operate in any human way. And although the targets that are set out here are very high targets for 50% sustainable journeys within the town and 60% of journeys will be sustainable in the new developments. We have to be aspirational and we have to actually be realistic, and the thing that joins those two aims together is that we are committed to developing the plans and policies that will enable those targets to be met. And that is what this strategy is all about. And as the master plans, which is the next big stage in the whole process of moving towards the Garden Town, this document is essential to inform the production of those master plans so that they can actually show how the 60% target for sustainable journeys can be delivered. So I would, as they say in Parliament, commend this strategy to the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Burke.
Anybody else wish to comment? Ask questions. Councillor Burke.
Well, go on. Are you taking questions now? Or?
I'm taking questions now, sorry. Signing of minutes.
I expect everyone to finish coughing. Thank you. You'll all be pleased to know that I have submitted my questions in advance, and I shan't be asking all of them. As has already been outlined, it's a high-level long-term strategy, but there needs to be reassurance that it's largely practical and deliverable. The strategy sounds sensible and sustainable, but can it be delivered? Is there the actual space? Now, there are various points I will be bringing up. But so starting on the covering report on page 23, paragraph 6, there's a comment about segregated light rail or tram, which is mentioned almost in passing as to why there needs to be these things, but it doesn't seem to be explored further in the report. I'm just wondering how practical a rail system would be and how much of a priority it is to the board, and is it affordable given the likely level of demand. Seems to be a degree of confusion there between the covering report and the actual strategy itself. Do you want all the questions all at once, or shall I pause?
Sorry, could you say what the question is?
The question is, how much of a priority is a rail system, bearing in mind it's covered in the covering report, but not in the strategy itself? Is it affordable given the likely level of demand? There seems to be some confusion between the covering report and the actual strategy about a rail system.
Well, there actually isn't any confusion. A number of suggestions have been put forward in this strategy, a number of options for the sustainable transportation corridors, and in particular the public transport element of those sustainable corridors. The actual detail of what type of vehicles, how they would run, how they would be guided, whether they would be have drivers, all these things are obviously for the future to be considered. It mentions these things, they're just options that are to be considered in the future. The main point about, or the main issue to do with the sustainable transport corridors at this level of consideration is the concept of the sustainable transport corridor and the approximate routes that are shown on the diagram. Even the routes aren't themselves are only indicative, they're not actually fixed at this point in time, because obviously once you get into the technical design there's all sorts of detail that has to be taken into account in actual technical design of these facilities. But there's no confusion, they're all possible options. Personally, I would say rail is too inflexible for what we're looking at, but it's one of the options that could possibly be utilised, not so much for the routes that run through the actual urban area, but there are routes shown on the diagram that relate to the more long distance public sustainable transport corridors that are envisaged as part of the A414 corridor transport measures, which we've been involved in working with Herts County Council and other districts. And their rapid transit system may possibly work better than rail, but that's where the different options have to be considered in relation to the particular location that we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. I very much appreciate it is only a strategy, it's an aspiration, but there are only so many routes east to west and north to south.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't hear that.
Sorry,
Different.
we're getting a paper copy to Councillor James. Councillor Carson, would you try that? Sorry.
Thank you. Quite understand that it's aspirational, it's desirable and everything else like this, but there are only so many routes east to west and north to south. I'm thinking particularly at the moment the route along from Old Harlow to 5th Avenue, which is basically First Avenue. as to what the practicalities would be of adding 2 dedicated lanes for a frequent, high-quality, seamless, rapid service with limited stops. How much room there is, what the cost would be, and also the disruption, bearing in mind how much disruption there is at the moment, widening Edinburgh away from 3 lanes to 4, and you're looking to add 2 lanes to 2 lanes. I mean, just how practical is that? Are you in danger of raising expectations as to what can be delivered rather against what can be delivered?
Can I suggest here that Councillor Carter puts forward those very points in relation to when the consultation commences? I mean, all these points obviously have to be made. They're all very practical points. The only thing I would say about what Councillor Carter's just said is that we should stop saying this is desirable. It's absolutely essential. It's not desirable. If we don't get the modal shift that's outlined in the strategy, we will be selling the future of our town away.
Any more, Councillor Carter?
I think it is, just 1 or 2 more. Amongst the comments from the expert panel, they say that even a high-level document needs to include timeliness, robust data, more nuanced targets and sub-targets, and clear indications of how priorities are to be translated into action, which is what I've just been talking about. I'm just wondering where the timelines are in this document.
Well, Councillor Carter's quite right to draw attention to the comments from the review panel, and just for the benefit of members who may not know as much about this project as Councillor Carter does, because he's on the local plan panel. The Garden Town Board, as part of the conditions for the grant of finance from the government, that was required to set up a quality review panel, which consists of experts in various fields, and they produce reports on the work that the Garden Town Board and the staff of the Garden Town project and the consultants have been producing. And personally, I think the points they make and the points that Councillor Carter drawn attention to are very valid. And in fact, those precise points we will be emphasising in our own comments in the consultation, because although we're approving this document tonight for purposes of consultation, we, as far as I'm concerned, Harlow District Council will be making its own representations about on this strategy, and certainly some of those points about targets and timelines are very important. And in fact, it was the absence of practical details like that caused the North Essex Garden Town project to not be approved by the local plan inspector.
With your permission, Chair, just 2 more questions now. Again, following on from the comments made by the panel, the strategy does not fully address the likely impacts of electric and autonomous vehicles on traffic and transport patterns. The movement towards electric vehicles is now moving forward with some pace, and certainly during the period of the strategy, it will have an impact. And it seems strange that over that kind of time period, there is no specific reference to electric vehicles and their maintenance and care and so forth.
One of the factors that has to be taken into account in this strategy is that it had to be agreed between 5 separate local authorities, and necessarily some authorities are more aspirational and forward-looking than others. Certainly, as far as I'm concerned, we are very aspirational and forward-looking, and we are already moving forward on our own independent research into electric vehicles. Not because we don't think the other authorities are committed to it, but I think that we see the need much more starkly than they do, and we want to propel the process along, and that's why we're, if you like, leading on that particular issue.
That's very welcome news, thank you, Mr. Reid. And then finally, there is a comment on page 43, to develop and deliver a well-maintained network which encompasses infrastructure solutions ranging from on-street cycle lanes and cycle-friendly junctions through to shared footways. This is a point I will be returning to, that shared footways are not a good idea and not a safe idea for pedestrians, people with physical disabilities, people in wheelchairs, people pushing wheelchairs. You know, bear in mind we have an item coming up next month about public order in the town centre, where the main hazard is cyclists. Trying to mix cyclists and pedestrians is not a way forward. That's not really a question, it's more of a comment.
Nevertheless, I did want to respond to it. I think that Councillor Carter's identified one of the points that was made by the Quality Review Panel as well, in that there's not enough, the references to encouraging walking and cycling, can be just rather trite, in the sense that they're just an aim. We need to have specific policies and technical details. I would almost say a toolbox of technical designs that can be utilised as in a way to enhance the walking and cycling. So, as it says in the report, like it says in the Quality Review Panel, Harlow already has an extensive walking and cycling network. The problem is it's not used as much as it should be. And there are various proposals that are being looked at. I mean, there are these rather cutely named pocket parks, which I've yet to fully understand, but as much as I do understand them, it's to make sure that long stretches of cycleway are broken up with, if you like, areas where people could stop and meet, or particularly at junctions of cycleways, so that they don't just become like walking and cycling motorways. There are places to stop, natural places where people can meet, or just have a rest. Some of us would need a rest. We recycle a lot of that. So, and also there's the idea of hubs. It's appreciated that in the future we aren't necessarily going to have stuff delivered to our doors, but we may want to pick stuff up from collective places. And the idea of hubs, where shortly before you get to your home, you can go somewhere and pick stuff up that you've ordered, is something that you can see from what is existing at the moment, how that could become a feature of the future. Certainly we don't want hundreds of vans racing around the town delivering a box of potatoes to people. We need to see other ways in which the convenience of ordering stuff by internet and then picking it up can be provided without encouraging lots of extra journeys that we're trying to obviously remove with our strategy. So the other feature of these routes, sustainable transport routes, is not only these pocket parks but also a more significant hub feature, which might have a cafe, a restaurant, or a shop, or just a means by which you can access a storage unit in which your order has been placed for you to pick up. So these are ideas that have got to be developed, and they're all possible in this high-level strategy. They're, if you like, later layers of detailed consideration that will follow on from the overall high-level strategy.
Any further questions? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask the portfolio holder if he agrees with the report on page 47 around parking?
You mean 4.17A?
I mean the whole of the page 47, of what's written there.
Okay. Well, I think all these points refer to a general issue as to the value of large areas of land being utilised simply for the parking of a vehicle for a considerable number of hours and then it being empty. Now, obviously, in some places in this country and other countries, they have lots of land, and these considerations aren't really a problem. In this country, particularly in this area, we have very little land, and that's evidenced by the the local plan, where it's been very difficult to find the spaces we need to provide the housing and jobs that we're required to by the government. So when it comes to allocating land simply to park cars on, when in some workplaces in Harlow, if you look at the original workplaces, there was actually as much, if not more, land allocated for car parking as there was for productive capacity, economic capacity. I'm afraid, that those days have gone. We have to consider the economic cost of providing a space simply for someone to park a car for 8 hours a day. So that's the general background to these considerations. And there are all ways in which we need to consider that. It's not to say that there isn't going to be parking, but we must consider it as part of the overall planning of an area and the economic use of land. If we can, by adopting, as I say, the sustainable transport system that we're hoping, and it's successful in achieving the modal shift targets that we've set out, then we can look towards a situation where there will be a need for much fewer parking spaces at both employment and even in residential areas than is the requirements at the moment. So all these points refer to those considerations, but there's no decisions have been made yet, and certainly it would be very interesting to see the response in the consultation to these particular points.
Can I just follow that up? Because in some instances, yes, this report says that the transport plan will consider, but in others, for example, E on page 47, it says it will manage, and it actually says that it will do something specific rather than consider. How does that relate to the comment you've just made about nothing's been decided?
Well, I would say that if things have been decided, it wouldn't say manage new parking supply. It would actually give you a lot of facts and figures about what allocations are appropriate for what types of development and so on. At the moment, what it's saying is that we are going to consider what levels of parking provision are appropriate for certain types of development, taking into account, which I've explained, and it says here, between parking supply and land use, because we cannot continue to make very expensive, very rare plots of land available simply for 1/3 of the day provide a parking space.
And if I could just answer that, Councillor Johnson, these are some suggestions in a consultation document. They will go out, people will make their responses, which we've been very interested to hear, and then the Cabinet will be acting on those recommendations.
Councillor Harlow.
Just on the subject of parking, we're talking about the use of land and the economic effects and importance and those considerations. And it's obviously implicit in this document, and it's called a sustainable transport strategy. But I just wanted to say, because I don't think we can say often enough, there is also the environmental consideration of our urgent and desperate need to reduce the number of car journeys and cars on the road. And I think that given what we know, we have 12 years to reduce our carbon emissions drastically, to completely rewire the way we use energy. This opportunity couldn't come along at a better time for us, and I think every single one of the ideas and recommendations that we're going to be looking at more closely and more detailed are brilliant opportunities for us to revolutionise our town at just the right moment in our history. So I think it's not only economically hugely attractive, and from a lifestyle point of view, I think everyone's going to enjoy living here greatly with these changes. But we have an incredible opportunity in the town to make a real difference to the impact on the environment that we have.
Yes, Chair, could I just respond? Because it is exciting, not least because of the whole Garden Town concept, but because of the presence of Public Health England.
Exactly.
Because we've already had discussions with Public Health England about these aspects of as they interact with public health. And I think that it's going to be very interesting that in some ways we are going to be the ones that lead in these developments with the assistance of Public Health England. And I'm not going to say we're going to be guinea pigs, but certainly it will be the opportunity for us to introduce these forward-looking proposals with Public Health England and to learn as we go along, to learn the lessons which can then be implemented in other places. So I think that aspect of it is particularly exciting.
I think we've moved on to comments now, unless it's another question.
I've got one final question, if that's okay.
One final question.
It's a technical question about the way we move forward. So what you're doing tonight is recommending that this goes out to public consultation as a draft, and then it says in B that following the consultation, subsequent revisions, it's intended that this will be agreed as a material planning consideration. Where will those subsequent revisions, where will the consultation responses, and where will that final agreement be taken?
Well, that's a very interesting question, actually. And there's two parts to the answer. One is that our own comments from Harlow District Council will obviously, prior to us sending them off, will come back to Cabinet for us to approve them as like our input into the consultation. And as far as the process that will take place as a result of the consultation, obviously that is the prerogative of the Garden Town Board, of which we play a leading role. And the delivery vehicle that will hopefully by that stage towards the summer and the autumn, the appropriate delivery vehicle, whether it be a private company, whether it be a private development company, or whether it be a joint planning committees, or even a new development corporation. There's all sorts of possibilities for a delivery vehicle that can actually deliver what is necessary. But obviously there's so much purpose has been sucked out of the political process at the moment with Brexit. It's difficult to focus everybody's attention on how we're going to proceed. Certainly by the summer and latest the autumn, we will be moved to a situation where we know how we're going to deliver the Garden Town, and that will incorporate how we're going to deliver all these transportation objectives. The only last thing I'd say, which I can't reveal too many details, not because I'm being secretive, but because I don't know. I had a discussion with the director of the Garden Town project, Claire Hamilton, on Tuesday, and she was quite excited that they've just got the preliminary results to show that the development from their viability consultants to show that the developments that are proposed still at this high level, but the work that's been done looking at land values and development values and so on suggests that the infrastructure we are considering implementing can be financed from those developments, which is quite a big step forward. So I don't know the details, but it's a very encouraging sign to know that we can fund the necessary infrastructure from the proceeds of the development.
Councillor Johnson, one more.
Yeah. Can I just follow up on that, Chair? So, have I got it correct, and if not, can you tell me what the actual process is? That this council has allowed, because it had to agree with 5 other authorities, or 4 other authorities, a consultation document to go out that we've already heard from you don't believe is fully round enough, and the council don't actually agree with, that we will be able to provide our consultation on it, but that any subsequent revisions are not the responsibility of this council. It may go to another body to do that, and will then be a material planning consideration that may, because of the process, have things in it that we are not happy with as one of the major landowners within the Harlow and Gilston Garden Town.
Well, can I just say that we're not one of the major landowners? I only wish we were, and we can have a much bigger effect on what happens. Well, certainly the planning authority, if that's what Councillor Johnson meant, and certainly the question of how we share responsibility for implementing all these policies and standards with our neighbouring districts and counties is something that is under active consideration, and hopefully by the summer we'll be in a situation where we can, with the government's assistance, who after all are funding all this work, we can arrive at the appropriate delivery vehicle, which will enable us all to have our input. But we can't necessarily expect, if we're doing it jointly, it's obvious you can't always get everything you want, and we will get as much as we can of what we think is necessary. That's what joint working is all about.
Right, any comments? Councillor
I'm not happy with the whole thing, and I understand Councillor Burton's comments about working jointly. I understand his comments about the delivery vehicle not yet being set. That being said, and at this point I make it clear to everyone who doesn't know, I'm not a driver. I've never learned to drive, and I don't own a car. But the car is the chosen method of transport for the majority of people. And just saying we're not going to use cars, instead of 11% and 22% of journeys coming into Harlow and being within Harlow being sustainable, just saying we're going to make them 60% and saying we're going to do that by, and when I look at parking, by saying that Harlow has too much low-cost parking. And so what we're going to do is consider taxing people to park at their place of work, and then managing via the planning system to manage it, to design out car parking spaces, is just ludicrous. Now, I support sustainable transport. I use sustainable transport modes to commute to work every day. The guided bus route when I get to Cambridge as well, once I get off the train, is a magnificent thing. It's a lot of investment, and they had a rail line there that they used already to get it working. And where I work in Cambridge is probably the cycling capital of Britain, and they've had major problems with it. Just implementing something like that in Harlow is going to be very difficult, and I honestly don't think will work with what I've seen in this document. And it's encouraging that Councillor Burton thinks that what's in this document can be paid for by the developers, because I often believe that developers get away with not paying for enough when they come in and put new developments. And as someone that lives in Church Langley and has seen the results of that on transport, when we were told, when I moved into Church Langley at the very beginning, that sustainability in the bus routes was going to mean that there wasn't going to be a need for a lot of people to use their cars on Church Langley. And now I know many of my residents sit for 30 minutes in the morning just trying to get out of Church Langley onto the main road network. It doesn't work. And I am really worried and concerned that we've got to a situation where this strategy, consultation document, call it what you will, has been published, can end up going somewhere and being used as a material planning consideration, and there's things in it that we as a council don't agree, that obviously we as an opposition don't agree with you as well, and that if you took this out to the average member of the public in Harlow, they won't like it. But I know, because just the way the document is written and the way the consultation is likely to be run, you're not going to get the quality of representations from the public out there. We haven't got the time to sit and do a consultation response, and really won't know what managing a new parking supply at key destinations through the planning system actually means. So I think the whole thing's going to be an utter mess. I don't think there is enough detail in here. I take on board the answers that Councillor Burton gave Councillor Carter about the level of detail in there. But I think to actually be at a stage where we are one of the people that's been involved in this, and we don't like the consultation document, and we're not happy with everything in it, is a really bad situation to be in.
Any further comments? Good. Right then, are we... Let me find it. Are we happy to recommend that the draft Harlow and Gilston long-term transport strategy attached in appendix A to this report published for a 6-week period of public consultation following the May elections, and it's note that the following consultation and subsequent revisions to the document, which is intended that the final transport strategy will be agreed as a material planning consideration for preparations of master plans, the preparation of the Gilston area charter, the application device, assessing planning applications, and any other development management purposes.
Great. Very good.
Right, there are no communications from committees, working groups, parties and panels. There are 12A to E minutes of the shareholders subcommittee, cabinet overview working group, highways panel and the safety committee. Do we agree to note those?
Yeah.
Thank you. I usually have a matter of urgent business. came to my attention today that a substantial petition, social media talks of 55,000 signatures, has been handed into Essex County Council asking them not to close libraries across the county, Harlow's amongst them. Cabinet will remember that Council agreed that the leader of the Council and the leader of the opposition would write jointly to Essex and ask for a meeting. No meeting has yet been offered. However, we have heard calls have been made for a special meeting of the County Council for the 12th of March. I shall be writing to Essex County Council to encourage them to hold this meeting and respond to the petitioners, and I'll invite the leader of the opposition to join me in signing it.
I will be happy to look at that letter with you, and as I say, was happy to sign the previous letter calling for what we all agreed for at full council. I'm not sure about the 12th of March. I'm not sure what's in the County Council's diary, but I'm happy to call for a special meeting, yes, no problem.
Thank you.